So in this video, we are going to be covering 5 things I wish I would have known before starting the PTR or public test realm, because there is a lot going on. There's a ton of features being thrown at us. And whether you're thinking about jumping in yourself and just want to get a head start, or just want to find out what happened in the PTR, this is a great video to watch. So let's jump in and get into the very first thing that I wish I would have known. So when I started the PTR, everything is back at 0. Your entire setup of everything you've set up is all back to 0, and you're starting with there's no character sitting in your inventory. You're starting completely brand new. It's a fresh install because it's going to delete out on the 9th, and everything's going to just be gone. So when you come in, you're actually starting at the very beginning of Diablo 4, where you're kind of going through the early quest and figuring out what's going on, and eventually it will lead you to Kivoshad. So you do have to do this because in Kivoshad is where they've added the special mechanic that's immediately going to jump you to level 100. So instead of taking all the time to level up, you're jumping to the end game and getting to actually test a lot of the features. But where that's going to be is when you come into here, after you do the little quest things, just go ahead and finish that. I think it starts down here. You move up, you finally make your way into Kivoshad. As soon as you are here, there'll be a person to talk to that's right above where this main waypoint is. So once you see that waypoint, there's going to be a person standing right above it. You talk to them, you're immediately ported to level 100. So you can just get going. You don't have to wait for anything. They also give you tons of materials so you can start testing things right away. Now, you do want to set yourself up to basically be able to play and test things, like as soon as you get your gear and doing all that, you also want to go fight. But there's a few things that you're going to want to check before you leave Kivoshad that will help you a lot. So one of the first thing is you're going to want to come down right in this area. This is where the stable is. You have to actually activate your mount. I got excited. I was playing with all my gear and I was ready to go try it. And I ran out and I'm running without a horse. And I'm like, why is my horse not working? So you just had to come here. It's probably very obvious for some people, but I skipped it. So, but just go grab the horse here. And then you're going to want to come in and actually check your settings because everything has switched. I want to point out a couple things. Outside of controls, obviously, if you do something other than the normal, you're going to want to update your controls. But in gameplay, I like to turn on immediately advanced tooltip compare and advanced tooltip information. That'll give me all the information I want to make when when I'm making choices on my gear, and doesn't slow me down. The other thing that's been added that is pretty cool to make sure it is where I think it is. Yes. So in the top part of graphics, you come down here, this last one, view distance. If you haven't noticed, they actually pulled the cameras back further so we can see more, which I think will help with minion and companion builds. But if you don't like that for any reason, you can actually just come back here and hit standard. So hitting up those settings, getting your horse, that will set you up for getting out there and actually trying what's going on. Now, one thing that I think is going to be one of the bigger game changers for how Diablo runs entirely is the way the Codex of Power is working. I hated it's like I didn't commit myself to a build early and then try to get every piece I could, every high roll codec or aspect that I needed to get that build perfectly. There was little I could do. I couldn't just switch over and try another build. But now when we come into the Codex of Power, it's completely different. There is no imprints. We're not pulling off the one-offs and then hoping that's not going to be replaced by something or just not matter later, and then we throw it on the ground or sell it for nothing. But in the Codex of Power, they actually have everything. Every time you break down a legendary that has an improvement on one of these, then it's going to just upgrade in this. So in some of them, like this one right here, let's go. Well, I upgraded a bunch of them, but this one, the aspect of hardened bones, this has 1 of 16. So I have not found an upgrade or broken down an upgrade that'll give me that ability. But the very base level aspect is now available to me right away. So that is freaking awesome. Obviously, it's going to cost a decent amount of materials to put it on anything. But the fact that we get these, and when we ever get a perfect roll, we just have a perfect roll sitting in our Codex of Power for that season. That is freaking awesome. So what that allowed to do is ultimately you can try a lot more builds. I did not expect this. I had heard rumors they were not going to do this, but it is actually here. So I don't know. I'm excited. This will allow me, no matter what character I jump to level 100, I can try out a bunch of builds, making the PTR, I think, way more valuable for anybody who's checking it now. But it's also going to make the gameplay in season 4 and on so much better. So the next thing that I noticed that was a little weird, and I didn't quite understand what was going on, just because it's new. It is obvious if you kind of flow through and read everything, but just so this comes up, there's these little symbols. If you look here, there's this little gray, looks like cross swords and rocks and stuff right here. This one has like a red glow to it. I didn't really understand what those were, but as I, kind of dug into it, what this is, you actually look at right under the level requirement. It says that gray upgrades an aspect in the codex power. So this is telling me that if I break this down, one of those things in the codex power is going to upgrade. So whatever this aspect is will get a higher roll than it has currently in the codex. So that's always a really cool thing when you see those. Now, what did the red mean? This just means that not only are you going to get the codex, but you're also going to get a transmog that is the look of this item. So remember before, if we looked at it before, if we got a new transmog, it would be this little, like, I don't know, what is that, a pickaxe? This pickaxe looking thing, and that would let us get the transmog. So now this is if it has both. So that's a really easy way. I didn't know what those were at first, but there it is. So that brings me to number 5 of things I wish I would have known, and that is the difference in the hell tides. It is a significant jump from where it was, and it's worth noting that when you start building up and you're getting the cinders and you're collecting this, you also have this thing right under. So the cinders are now this like triangle thing with a fire on it, right under the timer, and then under that is a threat meter. So as you kill in hell tides, the threat meter increases, and then you start getting ambushes all over the place and eventually opening more bosses, and it just gets crazy difficult. It was one of the first times I jumped in thinking nothing of it, because I've done a lot of hell tides. It hasn't been a big deal for quite some time, but I was actually risking like dying and losing my cinders repeatedly. And so just know that it does stack up very fast and get crazy powerful. That there's going to be more to this. I definitely want to create a video just about hell tides. It's always been one of my favorite mechanics. So we'll go into that more. But before we get out of here, there is a couple more things that I do want to show you that are kind of like just bonuses. Those are the 5 main things that I think if you just start with that, you're going to jump in, you're going to be able to try the test realm really fast and get to check out some of the new things that are just really interesting and not always clear. So now the next thing that was a little disheartening for me is, so much of what we have done in Diablo is that we've gotten rares or legendaries, it didn't matter, and then we try to make sure that the affixes on them were the right ones. We had and so occasionally, very rarely, there was like a short number of like, instead of having all 4, it would have 3 or something like that. In this, all of the affixes are going to be 3 affixes at max. So when you find an item on the ground, it's going to have 3 affixes. But the thing I noticed is that no matter what yellow or rares that I picked up, they only rolled with 2 affixes. And there's no way to add that other affix. You can add additional affixes through tempering, but you cannot add a base affix to this. So in endgame, the legendaries are the only thing that really matter. You can just basically break down the rares for parts. Unless it's like a really great roll of 2 things you really need early when you're leveling up in World Tier 4, but very quickly, it's not going to matter. You're not going to want to put the resources into upgrading that to the next level. So at first this was annoying. I was like, okay, I'm still looking at why am I checking all these rares? But then I realized if I'm in endgame, if I truly am pushing through and I just have all legendary gears and I'm starting to use tempering and I'm starting to use the masterworking, then I do not need to pick or to do anything with rares other than pick them up and break them down. So that saved me a ton of time when I started to do runs in the pit, which is a new added feature in the PTR as well. It's so cool. It's a great end game. You guys are going to love it. So then the next thing, the thing you definitely want to understand is that there is a major change in, well, all kinds of things in crafting, but in the base level, when we look at these items, we used to have, all of these would have like upgrades underneath, and we would, if there were weapons or armor, we'd come in here and upgrade, but that is no longer here. It has been completely removed in early game, but in end game, when you start doing a lot of masterworking, when you're running the pits over and over again to get the materials to do masterworking, that's going to be the entire replacement for upgrades. And it's no longer the 5 system. It's going to be 12, actual 12 upgrades. This one's showing 4 dots, but every 4th actually gets a major jump. So when you're at the lower levels, you're getting 1, like leveling up 1, leveling up 2 or 3, you're just going to get a kind of an even stat increase on all of your affixes. Then when you hit the 4th one of your abilities is going to roll with a 20% increase. So it's a huge jump in it, and it makes a very clear difference to the game. Now, I am going to do a video in much more depth about the crafting, because I think it has actually saved this game in a lot of ways. It's made the playability for me already way more enjoyable and fun after even hundreds and hundreds of hours I already put into this game. And I can't wait for you guys to experience. But if you want to check out that video, as soon as it's available, we'll be putting it right there. Until then, there'll be another video there that you guys can enjoy.